All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're unpacking a huge idea that you hear about all the time, one that's right at the heart of so many modern debates: multiculturalism. On one hand, it's this amazing vision of a world where all our different cultures are celebrated. But on the other, it brings up some really tough questions about what actually holds us all together. So, how do we get that balance right? Let's get into it.
When you boil it all down, this is the fundamental question we're trying to answer today. Our world is more diverse than ever, filled with people from every imaginable background. So the great challenge is, how do we build a society that's truly fair and just for everyone? This is the massive puzzle that multiculturalism tries to solve.
Okay, so to really understand multiculturalism, we've got to start with something that's deeply personal for every single one of us: our identity. Who are we? And how much does our culture have to do with that? This, right here, is the foundation for everything we're going to talk about. And this is the crucial starting point. The whole argument hinges on this idea that you can't really separate a person from their culture. I mean, think about it. Our language, our traditions, the values we're raised with, they all come together to shape our sense of who we are. Our culture gives us a sense of belonging, a way to understand our place in the world. But what happens when a group feels like their culture, their very identity, is being pushed aside or flat out ignored by the dominant culture? Well, they're not just going to sit back and accept it. They stand up and they demand recognition, they demand respect. And that's the spark that ignites what we call identity politics.
And this image, wow, it just captures the raw power of identity politics perfectly. This isn't just two athletes on a podium, it's a hugely powerful political statement. By raising their fists, Tommy Smith and John Carlos were using a global stage to say, "We are here. This is our identity as Black Americans, and we demand an end to the deep injustice we face." This is what identity politics looks like in action.
So you have this powerful cry for recognition from different groups. How do you respond to that? Well, this is where multiculturalism steps onto the stage. It's offered up as a political solution to the challenges that identity politics brings to light. Now, this is a really important distinction to make. Multiculturalism is way more than just enjoying different foods or celebrating festivals. That's the easy part. At its core, it's a political project. It says that the government shouldn't just be neutral or colorblind. It should actually step in and actively recognize and protect the cultures of minority groups.
And this right here is where things get really interesting, and frankly controversial. We're talking about group-differentiated rights. This is a giant leap beyond just tolerating differences. It means giving specific legal rights or special accommodations to certain cultural groups that other people don't get. For example, maybe it's exemptions from certain laws for religious practices, or allowing Sikh men to wear turbans instead of helmets in some jobs. It's all done to help preserve a group's unique identity.
So you might be wondering, where does this idea get its philosophical juice? Well, a lot of it comes from a view called communitarianism. It basically pushes back on the idea that we're all just individuals floating around. It argues we are fundamentally social creatures, shaped by our communities. And if you believe that a person's culture isn't just a lifestyle choice, but a core part of who they are, well, then it makes sense that the culture itself deserves to be protected.
But, and this is a big but, it's not that simple. Multiculturalism isn't just one single monolithic thing. Not at all. There's a whole spectrum of ideas on how you should actually manage a diverse society. So let's break down the main flavors.
So, on one end, you have liberal multiculturalism. This version says, yes, let's celebrate diversity, but everyone still has to play by the same basic rules of individual freedom and equality. Think of it like a big house with lots of different rooms, but everyone agrees on the same foundation and plumbing. Then, on the other end, you've got pluralist multiculturalism. This one goes further and asks, hey, who says liberal values are the only ones that matter? This view can sometimes support more separation between groups, all in an effort to preserve a culture's authenticity.
And then there's a third way of looking at this: cosmopolitanism. This one sees diversity as this incredible creative force. It's not about keeping cultures in separate pure boxes. It's about mixing them all up to create something totally new. It's like a global food court where you can combine different cuisines, or how new music genres are born from blending different traditions. It's all about fostering a sense of global citizenship, where our identities are a rich blend of many influences.
Okay, so these are fascinating ideas, but they don't just exist in a textbook. Out in the real world, they spark some fierce debates. And this brings us right to the central conflict, the big tug of war at the very heart of multiculturalism.
This image and its motto really say it all. E pluribus unum, out of many, one. This is the fundamental tension, the ultimate tightrope walk. How does a society create a single, unified national identity, the one,
while also respecting and protecting all the different cultural identities within it, the many. It's a huge challenge.
And that tension leads to some really sharp critiques. Here, the former British Prime Minister David Cameron is voicing a fear that you hear a lot, that in trying so hard to celebrate diversity, multicultural policies have actually created more division, not less.
So this really lays out the conservative critique. The number one fear? That by focusing so much on what makes us different, multiculturalism ends up pulling us apart. The accusation is that it creates these segregated communities where people live parallel lives. They might live on the same street, but they're in completely different worlds. This, the argument goes, wears away at the shared national identity, that social glue that holds a country together. And the solution often proposed from this point of view is assimilation, the idea that minority groups should adopt the core values of the majority culture for the sake of unity.
All right, we've gone through the theory, the different flavors, and the major conflicts. So after all that, what are the essential things to remember? Let's boil it all down.
So at its very core, multiculturalism really stands on these three pillars. First, a view of human nature that says our culture is fundamental to who we are. You can't just separate the person from their cultural background. Second, a view of the state that says it has a job to do. It needs to be an active player in protecting cultural groups. And third, a view of society that says diversity is fundamentally a good thing, a source of strength, even if figuring out how to manage it is the great challenge.
And all of this leaves us with the big, final question. What's the ultimate goal here? Should different groups assimilate and become one? Should they integrate, keeping their culture while participating in a shared society? Or is some kind of separation actually better? Finding the right balance between these paths isn't just some abstract political debate. It's a question we all have to wrestle with in our own communities. What kind of society do we really want to build together? There's no easy answer.